Sports Centre Calgary, and I'm the Director of Biomechanics and Performance Analysis. And at the Canadian Sports Centre Calgary, we work with our Olympic and national level athletes to prepare them for major games and Olympics.
And you're at an analytics conference. How does analytics and Olympic athletes have anything to do with each other?
Well, it's very, very important because me being a scientist, we're always collecting data on our athletes. And we want to understand how that data is related to the athlete, and historical data as well too, and figuring out what we can do to make that athlete better based on the data that we collect. So we collect data like video data on how an athlete performs techniques, but other members of our team also collect data on physiology, strength, nutrition, even sports psychology.
Huh. And so can you talk to me about like some of the data points that you collect? I mean, you guys are collecting a lot of information on specific people. What is it that you're looking for?
So what we look for is, at the simplest level, if we were to look at like competition results. So we're interested in analyzing where an athlete has been historically, how they are competing throughout the year, throughout the 4-year cycle leading up to the Olympics. And not only are we looking at our athletes, but we're looking at other international athletes as well too, to say, okay, this person is a top level athlete, so where were they at and how did they get to this point? So we're able to look at competition results from those athletes, not necessarily scientific data because we don't collect the data on them, but we are able to look at competition results and figure out how an athlete is performing and if they're at their best during a certain time of the year.
So is it possible, I mean, you have an Olympic race here, and you have 20 people involved in the race. Can you take a look at those 20 and say, that's the one that's going to win?
We could, yes, and I think that's based on the data analysis that we do historically again. So if we were actually looking at an athlete and being able to see them in competition and seeing historically where they've been at, then we'd be able to tell, yes, this athlete might be the one that might be on the podium during the Olympics as well too. So.
Cool. So, I'm really interested because I mean, you guys are basically taking people and looking at them as if they were robots. I mean, not to remove the personality and the emotion from it, but I mean, you are literally looking at them from how do they work, how do they operate, what needs to go in, what comes out, and how do we get a gold medalist out of it, right? So, I mean, kind of elaborate a little bit more on that. I mean, like, if I'm an Olympic athlete, how many people are working on me?
We can have, in terms of what's called the integrated support team or the IST, 5 to 10 people that are actually working with one specific athlete. And that might include different disciplines like biomechanics, physiology, strength and conditioning, nutrition, sports psychology, and then additional to that, they would have their coaching and support team around that. So coaches, assistant coaches, and other people that are administrators that work around them to make sure that they're performing the best. So they really don't have to worry about anything other than taking the advice of the people around them to make them the best that they can become.
Well, that's really interesting. So the Canadian Sports, so these are independent organizations?
Yeah, so the Canadian Sports Centre Calgary is one of multiple sports centers around the country, and there are other sports centers, for example, in Montreal, there's one in Vancouver, and there's one in Atlantic Canada. So there are different sports centers around the country. So the Canadian Sports Centre Calgary right now resides at the University of Calgary, but we will be moving our facilities to Winsport, or Canada Olympic Park, as some people know it as well too. And we're creating what's called the Canadian Sport Institute. So that will be under one roof. The athlete will be able to train, get tested, and also have medical care as well too. So we have under one roof, and that facility is going to be opening up in the next few months.
Excellent. So this is some pretty high-tech stuff.
Very high-tech.
I mean, is this happening in other countries? I mean, is this kind of what we can expect out of the amateur sport circuit?
In Canada, we're trying to play catch up a little bit, I guess, with other countries, and there are a couple of models that we use around the world. Australia probably has done the best job at creating what's called sport institutes, and they've been under the Sport Institute model for quite a few years, actually, since probably before the Sydney 2000 Games. And there's other organizations, other countries like Great Britain that have a good sport institute model as well too. So we're learning from international aspects and trying to create the similar systems to what other countries have done.
How can you compare this to the professional sports circuit? I mean, you take a look at the NHL, and I mean, the NHL is high tech. I mean, like they spare no investment in how to get their athletes to be the best they can be. How is that different from the athletes that you guys are training and the systems that you're operating in?
I think we do the same. We work with less money than the professional organizations do, but we definitely want to invest in technology, in how we analyze our athletes and what we do with our athletes. So we're investing heavily in that aspect. So we're using very similar technologies to what those professional sports teams are using to do analysis of our athletes and analysis of data and information too. So.
Professional athletes, I mean, like, there's a lot of marketing that goes into their athletes. You know, I mean, it's not just a player. I mean, this is a personality that they really promote. I mean, there's merchandise you can buy. I mean, do you guys have something similar in the sense? I mean, you guys obviously don't have the same budgets, right? But I mean, is there just as much public support?
Yeah, there is public support, and we try and work with our athletes and market them, I guess, if you will, as the high level, best of the world athletes type thing. So if you were to walk, for example, through the Canada Olympic Park or Winsport facilities, there are posters up there with marketing of our athletes that work out there that say, I train here. So trying to get some visibility for them, because with our amateur athletes as well too, it's a little more difficult to notice them if they're walking down the street, because you might not know what they look like or who they are compared to a professional hockey player or somebody like that. So we do invest in that side of things as well too. So.
Is there anything else you want to bring up in terms of what you do and how what you do relates to analytics?
Yeah, I think what we do as related to analytics is that, like I mentioned, we analyze data, but not only the data that my specific discipline collects, but we want to understand what makes a holistic or complete athlete. So we want to pull all the information and data together throughout the year that we collect, based on biomechanics, based on physiology, based on strength testing, based on nutrition. So we really start understanding holistically what those parameters are that actually are making a successful athlete.
Perfect. So I want to cut to break. I really enjoyed this conversation, and when we return, we'll be looking at Edmonton.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much.
Join the conversation next year as more cities become data-driven. Become a community partner. Contact us at info@abctech.ca.